Here is a very unusually shaped light bulb. I vividly remember seeing light bulbs like this for sale back in the 2000s. Now granted, the memory is old and faded, but if I recall correctly, these were halogen bulbs. Probably early instances of halogen bulbs, meant to replace basic incandescent. And I recall the packages having like a yellow and orange color scheme. So I think that they would have been Sylvania. And it was, they were sold in blister packages. We had the piece of thin cardboard on the back, and then the bulbs were encased in clear plastic on the front. When I started to really get interested in lighting and light bulbs a couple of years back, I thought of these, and I wanted to find some of these for my collection. And I have previously not been able to find pretty much any trace of these bulbs' existence. Now, I'm not sure if that's because I've been searching the wrong keywords or because they're just very rare and don't exist. I think I've mentioned these videos, I've mentioned these bulbs in a couple other videos, and I do recall having a couple conversations with various lighting collectors about these bulbs, but I don't think much came of those discussions. So I do think that these are pretty rare bulbs. Every time I go to the OK Will, which is probably more times than I should, I always look through all the lamps, even the ugly modern ones, because sometimes there will be a good bulb inside an ugly lamp, and I'll take the bulb out and bring just the bulb to the register, and then I gotta do a price check, and it usually is like $1 or $2. This time the bulb was inside this lamp, and the whole thing was only $5, so I kind of liked the lamp, so I just got the whole thing. I figured they're gonna charge me half of that for the bulb anyways, so we can get some kind of decorative E26 based bulb to use in here, or get a clip-on shade, something like that. It's a pretty cool lamp. But anyways, this was what I was mostly interested in, which is the bulb. Now this one is a Feit Electric branded bulb. Now, I always thought that Feit Electric was a Home Depot store brand, or the Home Depot store brand, but then I think I recall somebody saying it wasn't, so now I don't know anymore. If it was a store brand, then perhaps the OEM of the bulb was whatever Sylvania was using at the time, or if Sylvania was still actually doing the manufacturing back then, I'm not sure. If Feit is not a store brand, then I guess it's a whole different OEM perhaps, or maybe if it is an OEM, then Sylvania used these bulbs as the OEM and sold it under the Sylvania name. I don't know. I don't know anything about these bulbs in terms of the OEM and manufacturing history. So the nostalgia aside, I now find these particularly interesting because the shape is identical to the old mercury vapor bulbs, just in a much smaller form factor. So it looks really quite cool in the lamp. Now this one is rated at 60 watts. So that would kind of rule out it being a halogen, because if it was a halogen, it wouldn't be a round number. It would be, 43 watts for a 60 watt incandescent equivalent, or 72 watts for a 100 watt incandescent equivalent, or I think 29 watts for a 40 watt incandescent equivalent. I suppose it is possible that it's a halogen bulb and it's just labeled as 60 watts because that's the equivalence. I'm not sure. If it is just a regular basic incandescent bulb, then the question becomes, why this shape? It is small. It's much smaller than a regular light bulb. It's much less wide and not too much shorter, maybe about a half an inch shorter, quarter inch shorter, somewhere in there. Gosh. So it is smaller, but I don't know if this was supposed to be like a maybe a vibration resistant bulb, or a long life bulb or a different color temperature. It looks like a basic soft white bulb to me, probably 2700K in color. Once we turn it on, I hope it works. We might be able to see maybe there's multiple struts holding up the filament, which would lead me to believe it's a vibration resistant bulb or something like that. Actually, let's see if we can peer in the bottom of it, because there is a little bit of a gap where it's not frosted. Huh. That looks like a halogen capsule in there to me. 100% it is. That is a halogen capsule. So this is the same as those, the same concept as those Smart Echo incandescent bulbs, where it's just got a glass housing on the outside and it's a little halogen capsule on the inside. So it is halogen. Oh, I'm very curious now to see what the power consumption is going to be. Well, let's go ahead and plug this in. I'm going to plug it into the Variac, and at least the first time we turn it on, I'm going to ramp it up slowly, because a lot of times if a bulb is going to burn out, it usually does it when you first apply power. So I'm going to start on low volts, and I'll ramp it up. Okay, we're live at 0 volts, and going up. It works. That's about 25% on the control, so probably around 30 to 35 volts. Let's make it a little bit brighter. Okay. So this is definitely, let's lower the brightness a bit. This is definitely a halogen capsule inside there. You can see a couple of things that we always see with the Smart Echo incandescent bulbs. You can see these lines of light around the outside, top to bottom. That's very typical for these halogen capsule style bulbs. And you can see the filament inside there. It's about the right length for a halogen capsule bulb. Let's see if we get a little more brightness on here. If you get it too bright, the filament's not going to be visible anymore. It's going to get washed out. I can see the filament in person pretty good, but it's not coming up too good on the camera. That's unfortunate. Well, you can kind of see it. It's right there. It's the filament there. Very, very interesting. So this is already consuming 20 watts. So I think it's probably going to consume more than 43, although it's not linear, so it might not adjust. It's at 50% right now, but it's not a linear increase, so if we had another 50%, it's not necessarily going to go to 40 watts. In fact, it probably won't. Well, let's keep ramping it up. So now we're at 75% on the control, and it's already at 40 watts. So it probably is going to be a true 60 watts, just like it's rated. Go to full power here. Wow, that's bright. Yeah, that's definitely a 60 watts bulb. It's drawing 62.6 the watts, and the power factor is 0.97. That's probably just because it's running through the Variac. I'll go ahead and plug it into the thing directly. That was stupid. I didn't plug it into it. Just wasted another cycle. If I plug it into the kilowatt directly, it's actually only 0.96 power factor. 58.7 the watts, 0.51 the amps. So it's not incandescent. It's definitely a halogen capsule bulb, and it seems to draw the 60 watts that it's rated for. So I guess now the question is, what the heck is the brightness? Because if it's a 60 watt halogen, it should be brighter than a 60 watt incandescent, I would think. Yeah, it seems kind of like really bright to me, more than a 60 watt. But That might just be because the light is more concentrated. You have to remember this is small. You know, we're used to the light being diffused through a large area like this. This is very small and concentrated, so it's going to appear brighter to look at. Really interesting. I have a lux meter which measures light output. I need to find that because that would be very useful when we're doing lighting videos like this to compare these different bulbs. Yeah, I'm going to have to look for that soon. Alright, so this works. That is super cool. I'm so glad I found one of these. It's not, I don't think it's the exact ones I remember because I'm pretty sure they were Sylvania. But it's the same shape. Very, very interesting. Yeah, it's not putting out as much heat as an incandescent would. It's definitely a halogen capsule in there. Alright, well that is very, very intriguing. If anybody knows anything about these bulbs and or recalls the Sylvania ones that I spoke about earlier, if those were actually a thing and not just a figment of my imagination, and or has ones like this and has videos of them, I'd be interested to watch them. So let me know in the comments box if you know anything about these bulbs.